Hello, it's 6 o'clock. That means another episode of Rivers of Bant with Shea Grant and your co-host.
And we go, and hello, nice
Hello.
to meet you.
Uh, Bit of a technical mishap there. Talk amongst yourselves, class. Today we're going to talk about the anti-vaccination movement that's been gaining a lot of ground recently in the United States, Australia. Not so much here, actually. Sorry, more technical difficulties. And it's going to talk you through a bit about the history of vaccinations, the science, the ethics associated with that. So, you take it away, Andy.
Technical difficulties are really rearing themselves up to start.
Sorry?
These technical difficulties are really rearing themselves up, so aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
No,
I know. It's almost
makes it a bit more exciting.
it's almost as if somebody controlled the decks as inept in some way.
First thought. Anyway, I'm going to talk you through a summary of history. It's not going to be totally historically accurate, but it's going to be the broad picture. And so, the main source of vaccinations came from the disease of smallpox. Smallpox was a bit of an epidemic in Europe and in England a fair while ago. I think it was the 18th century, was it?
I think so.
Around
Yes.
the 18th century. Smallpox, for anybody that doesn't know, is a horrific disease. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost certainly deadly. Tremendous pain, tremendous scars, scabs.
Can I interject with a fact? Actually, I think it claimed 300 to 500 million lives in the 20th century alone.
The 20th?
The 20th century, yeah, and it was eradicated in 1980. Yeah,
Oh.
20th century, 1900s.
Whoa.
It was eliminated in 1980. Actually, I think the last case was in India. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it claimed 200 to
God.
500 million lives. So it's a serious disease.
Yes, and it's horrendous. It impacts all people, young, old. And so, essentially, this was a terrible disease, and a man called Edward Jenner, who was a doctor in England, noted that milkmaids around his
You're gonna have to find milkmaids, people who
work with cows and
Yeah.
who obtain milk. People know who milkmaids are, I'm sure.
people who obtained milk
People who obtain milk
cattle.
from cows via various pulling
via the
methods.
traditional means. We
Via
don't
the
need to go into
traditional-
the ifs and buts.
Okay, we don't need to go into the hands and buts. But effectively, he noticed that these people tended not to get smallpox. It was an odd thing.
It was an old thing.
And there was also a disease which was fairly similar to smallpox, which was called cowpox, that milkmaids always got. It was effectively small scabs over the hands, and they got it through interacting with cows. And Jenner noted that these milkmaids didn't seem to get smallpox. And so he observed this here for a while, and he was more and more sure that he had a case here, that there was something to it. People who got cowpox did not get smallpox. That it somehow provided a vaccine. Vaccine comes from the Latin for cow, I think. doesn't it?
Yeah, vacca. Vacca means cow.
And so Jenner, being back in the day when there wasn't too many medical regulations, decided to test this hypothesis. Of course, he wasn't entirely sure, so he wouldn't test it on himself. So he decided to take his gardener's son.
Yes, very unethical.
Well, it would be
It's unspeakable now.
unspeakably unethical. But he decided to take his gardener's son, a boy called James Phelps, who I believe was 8 or 10 or so. And so what he did was he deliberately infected him with cowpox. He made a small scratch on his arm, I believe, and put the pus from one of the milkmaids' diseased hands.
Diseased hands, yeah.
Diseased hands.
Into the scab,
Scab's the terminology I'm after.
thereby infecting him.
Thereby infecting him.
With the less serious condition, smallpox, or cowpox, I should say.
With the cowpox. So the boy got the cowpox, and then I think about a week later, he went over made the same incision, and then put smallpox
Mm-hmm.
directly into the boy's cut.
Yep.
And thankfully, the boy did not contract smallpox. Jenner was confirmed in his idea, and it was the end of the story. Happy story.
Yeah.
Jenner didn't go to jail. The boy lived, and he was immune from smallpox. And although that sounds like a very happy ending, and of course, if it hadn't been a happy ending, it would have been a trial for murder. The story is slightly more complicated. Although Jenner did discover that there, immediately after he discovered that there, and he put this out into the world, there was still a lot of opposition. Anti-vaccination groups or anti-vaccination parties aren't the new thing. They're as old as vaccines themselves. And Jenner's original idea was so original that it was in fact met with a lot of public criticism. For example, for parents themselves, the actual vaccination of children at that time, you had to take the child and scratch its arm with some sort of implement and then infect him with cowpox. So the scratch himself would have caused a lot of pain and duress, and then the actual infection of cowpox isn't a pleasant disease. It's not deadly.
It is actually a disease rather than just giving you the ability to be immune.
Yes, you do have to actually have the disease, so it's not a pleasant procedure, and so ultimately a lot of parents were very reluctant in that respect. Local clergy as well. Local clergy said that it was unchristian from the fact that it was derived from an animal, which say what you must about that. And then some skeptics overall didn't really believe Jenner, even though they hadn't tested themselves, of course, didn't believe him. And some even at that stage thought smallpox actually came from decaying matter in the atmosphere rather than any sort of viral infection. So there was a lot of pseudoscience, a lot of untested ideas, and Jenner's ideas at the time were so out there that it took a while for it to catch on. But eventually it did catch on. Eventually vaccinations propagated, and eventually more and more vaccines propagated. And so the issues of ethics of vaccines, of course, are a very paramount question. I mean, an example is that there was a Vaccination Act in 1853, and what this act said was effectively that all children under 3 had to get a vaccination, and this was later extended to, I believe, under 15. And so, of course, on the face of that, looks like a good idea. Less children die of thing, fewer children die of smallpox, and so on. It's all right. If it needs corrected, it needs corrected. So, on the face of that, looks like a good idea. Fewer children die of smallpox, we're all better. But then a lot of people said, shouldn't we as parents be able to choose how we look after our children? That was the argument.
Yeah, it raises the profound question of a person's autonomy as well and their civil liberties.
Yes, essentially there is a liberty question here. To what extent does the government have control over your health or the health of your children? That is a question, and it's a fair question, and that is to some extent the root of the question till today in places like America and Australia. That is some of the arguments, and there's also, to another extent, vaccines aren't altogether cut and dry case. There are times when people claim that vaccines have people have made links to autism, although there is no, as far as people are aware, no scientific link to autism. But in fact, there's always that there unsureness. It's never 100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a sort of abstract thing. You protect your child, and then what he would get in maybe 20, 25 years time, he no longer gets.
Yeah.
But you have to go through that there implicit idea, and then you've got all sorts of other individuals telling you, no, that's not right, no, it doesn't work.
Can we just go back to the alleged links with autism, or I think it's what we now refer to it as, I think it's autistic spectrum disorder,
Yes.
and the alleged links between that and vaccinations.
It was specifically with the MMR.
Yeah,
vaccine.
measles, mumps, rubella. Well, in the 1990s, there was an alleged pandemic, a very significant rise in the number of people being diagnosed with autism. It was prior to 1990, it was, I believe, between 1 and 3 per 10,000, and then in the 1990s went up to 15 per 10,000, which is quite a significant rise. But of course, you could argue that's just we're better at diagnosing it now, and there are more sort of variables that you take into account that could be classed under this new definition of autistic spectrum disorder. But there was a British doctor called, I think it was Dr. Wakefield. He published in, what was it under? Was it the Lancet? It was
the Lancet, the
British Medical Journal.
Yes, the British Medical Journal.
The British Medical Journal. So very prestigious journal, of course. I think it was a small scale sort of study, and there are some controversies surrounding it, which we'll get into. But what he proposed was that those with, I think it was people who were susceptible, abnormally susceptible to be getting measles, when they received the MMR vaccine, I think it altered maybe the enzymes in their stomach, and that in turn meant that their gut microbiome, so the bacteria naturally living in their gastrointestinal tract, was altered. And there is significant research showing that the gastrointestinal bacteria that we have plays a role in brain chemistry. So he was saying that this could have an effect. It could be a potential cause of autism. However, I have read that he stood to gain significant financial advantage to getting rid of the MMR vaccine. I think he had a patent lined up for a new vaccine
So he wasn't going into it with the purest intentions.
Yeah, perhaps not. I mean, it's all down to who you believe. Fans of Infowars out there.
Shout out.
Shout out to Infowars. Dr. Wakefield actually made an appearance on the Alex Jones show where he was hailed as a hero. So it's really, for outside observers, it is really hard to decide, because in some journals I read that he is a con man, and in YouTube channels, very prestigious YouTube channels like Infowars with Alex Jones, he is hailed as a hero. So it's sometimes without the without the scientific knowledge necessary, sometimes it is whose word do we take when it comes to these sort of things.
Yes, but we should reiterate that the scientific consensus is that the MMR vaccine has no measurable link to autism in children.
Mm-hmm.
That is the scientific consensus as of the moment. But of course, it's not always what the scientific consensus says. It's whoever shouts loudest is heard.
Perhaps, yeah. Also, have you heard about the idea that not the magnesium, the mercury? I think the mercury is used as a preservative in some of these vaccinations, and they claim that mercury, obviously we know mercury is toxic.
Yeah.
But I think it's very much to do with the dosage that is in the vaccination that determines whether or not it's toxic.
Okay, so they're using mercury so that the vaccine can last whenever it's like transported to various countries.
Yeah. I mean, the argument that you use is pregnant women, for example, are told to ignore shellfish because it contains I think it actually contains methyl mercury. It's mercury with a methyl group essentially.
Yes.
But I think the reason they're maybe told to avoid shellfish is it's very hard to accurately measure how much methyl mercury is in actually a given volume of shellfish, tuna, whatever. Okay. Whereas in a vaccine, we can be pretty sure that there is X amount.
It's measured out in a lab.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's no medical prescription that tells women not to take this vaccine, or is there?
I am not sure, but from what I've read, no, I don't think there's anything saying that pregnant women shouldn't get the vaccine. Well, shouldn't get. Well, again, what vaccine we're talking about? Talking about the flu vaccine.
Preserved with this particular mercury substance.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all vaccines really. So there's new flu vaccine actually, which I think a lot of people are expressing, what would you say, concern over. Like in the US and Australia, there's a sort of harsh opposition to this.
Right.
No, I don't really know the potential effects that this could have on somebody who is pregnant.
Okay, but I'm sure if there was some dire effects, we would have probably heard some cases going to court.
Yeah, I mean, there's the obviously if you watch Infowars, it's like it's a plan by the elites, but I don't know who stands to gain from people suffering from mercury poisoning or ASD, autistic spectrum disorder. I don't know what they claim there's an insidious plan out there to poison the population, but I don't know I honestly don't know what the incentive is behind that.
No, that is true. Not that there is an insidious plan, but there's often a tendency.
Oh right, just got what you said.
No, not that there's an insidious plan by the global elites to keep us down. That's my Alex Jones impression. Needs a lot of work. But in these,
it's possible. I knew who it was.
Yeah, but that's because you're deep into it.
I am deeply immersed within the Infowars.
When you're that deep, everything sounds like Alex Jones.
Yeah.
No, but on these sort of conspiratorial theories and stuff like that, there and these here sort of.
Yeah, I think the show has taken a turn. I know we've only done 2 shows. It really didn't start off as a conspiracy show.
No, I'm not all about.
But we've been dwelling on nothing else.
No, I'm not.
We need a sports segment to even it out.
We will do a sports segment after a song, but for the moment, I just want to consider.
Are the elites using the World Cup as a form of mind control? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Sony, everybody advertising on this global scale.
No, there is a sort of a prevalence of these conspiracy theories. Where do you think that comes from? Why do people like conspiracy theories?
Do
you think it comes from like a sort of what would you call it? Not in a negative manner, but a sort of all these people don't know this, but I know it.
Yeah, it's the in-group, out-group dichotomy. I think there's an inherent. Well, we semi-covered it in the last show, but the inherent hierarchy within weeaboos and within the scientific community. There's wherever you go in the world, there will be a hierarchy of some sort, whether it's a tribe in the Amazon or whether it's in the White House in the United States. There's a hierarchy everywhere. So I think people who like conspiracy theories like to be at the top of this, and then all the other sort of unknowing people on the outside below them.
Right. So you think they're putting themselves at the top, or are they putting themselves in one group and everybody else in another group? The unknowings,
the hierarchy,
the ignorances.
The hierarchy analogy mightn't have been as bust as I wanted it to, but it's what you said at the start, the in group out group sort of dichotomy.
Yes, I suppose that is one extent, but do you think media has anything to do with the proliferation of conspiracy theories? New media?
Like Infowars?
Not specifically Infowars, but
just you mean to the medium of the internet, or?
But consider, you could go on something like YouTube, right, and you could look up, say,
pranks in the hood gone wrong, gone sexual brackets, red arrow circle highlight.
You could
social experiment.
You could look up that.
Yeah.
Or you could not waste your life.
Joey Diaz. It's Uncle Joey. No, sorry.
Okay, I'm making a broader point here.
Oh yeah.
No, my broader point is you could go on to YouTube and you could look up a lecture on, I don't know, a lecture on evolutionary psychology by some Yale professor who had studied it for the past 30 years and has done research, has gotten data, has looked up everything, checked that he's right, double checked, corrected what he has done wrong, and then on the suggested page you could get the elites are actually aliens. You know what I mean? In the same screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All your data is weighed equally, in a sense. It's weighed by the views, not by the quality of the content. You can put forward the argument that the quality of the content will produce more views.
But as we know,
it's not necessarily true. Pranks in the hood gone wrong.
Yeah. Gone sexual, gone wrong.
is not the higher point of human intellect, but it achieves millions of views.
Yes.
And so you can argue that even in this new media, people in general, including me and you, have to be very careful about what we view.
Yes.
You have to be selective.
Well, yeah, you do have to be selective. What was we originally talking about? Like why conspiracy theories are so loved?
Essentially, love might be. I think it is the right word.
Yeah.
Why do people become conspiracy theorists? Because a lot of these people don't just latch onto one. They don't just go, the moon land was faked, but all of this no trees is rubbish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Sorry for the viewers. We'll have to back up the no trees. That's right.
Oh, apologies. There is a conspiracy theory in some circles that there are no forests.
Yeah.
I haven't delved deep into these circles. I was worried about my mental state, so I looked at them from a distance.
Yeah.
But they are out there.